But then there's always got to be a little bit of Nick Diaz that comes out. The real Nick Diaz today at the weigh-in.
That's why why this hallway was so crowded when the weigh-in ended. People were surrounding Nick Diaz. I mean, he's a star, even though he basically doesn't say anything. And what had happened at the weigh-in was BJ Penn, as he often does, sort of leans forward and puts his forehead on the forehead of the other fighter. And I think, Trigg would be able to say it's kind of a no-no. You don't touch the other guy. And he put his forehead up against Nick's, and Nick took a swing at him. And Dana White was in between them and was able to get them separated. BJ pulled back just before Nick landed, so it wasn't close, but he did it. And it's one of those things. It's like
very touch and go.
It's if you hit him and you cut him, you just don't do that.
Yep.
So that was Nick Diaz's moment, but I think that's what that's going to have more people jacked up for the fight tomorrow.
See, that said,
Nick Diaz is crazy.
Yep. When you take a swing at somebody and it doesn't connect, then they have that whole benefit. However they can use it tomorrow, at least have it viral for the next 24 hours. They're like, this guy's a maniac. These guys hate each other. So it actually works. Just thank God he didn't hit him.
Well, here's the thing, too. We got to remember in the background, this whole thing is about ready to explode on Fox. Like, this whole thing is about to jump over and hit a huge network for MMA, as far as MMA is concerned. And now part of it is going, are these fighters controllable? Does the UFC have the ability to keep these guys under wraps? When November 12th comes around, this is on primetime Fox. Like, what's going to happen? Oh, no, what's going to go on? Like, Diaz actually did us a huge favor from the fighter standpoint that he's completely controllable. He's not nuts. He's not completely out of his mind. Right. But he gave us enough viral information to make everybody that doesn't know anything
just
at all.
Just partially out of his mind, not completely.
Hey, every athlete in the planet, I don't care what the sport is. I don't care if it's golf, if it's professional badminton, if it's long-distance racing. I don't care if they're triathletes. They're all a little bit crazy. I mean, we're all nuts because to do what we do that extreme.
You're fighting in a cage.
Yeah, it's a little bit off.
Yeah. Kevin and I, we're not like, let's go train and roll, and we'll go fight each other in a cage. Well, sometimes Kevin wants to, but we don't do that.
Kick Cofield in the head. That's pretty much all. I'm not looking for anything back.
Is that when I'm a grounded fighter? You're going to illegally kick me? That's not nice. I don't like that. I'll
stomp it on your head. It's just what I do.
But so you do believe that, for the most part, even with the swing today at the weigh-in, that he's controllable and there's a method to his madness.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say a method is madness like, hey, it's like all my arguments, all my boasting, all that stuff, all those drawn out stuff I did with Hughes was written down weeks in advance. I wrote it all down, rehearsed it by myself. When I knew the question was going to get asked. Back then it was like 12 reporters. So
I was there.
There was like 12.
So you're telling me that you knew what I was going to ask you back?
Yeah.
Well, you got Duke, Kevin. You really got played.
There's only 7 questions. There's only 7 questions.
So did I, though.
I remember talking to Dana White before you fought Hughes, and Trigg is crazy. He's nuts. He's this and that. And then here I come to find out that Trigg is so anti-nuts that he's writing down the answers before I ask the questions.
And I'm not a writer. Like, I'm a guy that I don't write well, but I still wrote down. I still do it today. Like, all the stuff that I do when I broadcast, the majority of it is written down because I want to make sure that I know what I'm talking about before I get there. And that's what I did. Diaz does not do that. So when I say he's controllable, he's controllable in the sense of he's always going to be the same way. He's going to be the same guy, but he's not going to be malicious. He's not looking to do you damage unless you're ready to do him damage. But he's also never going to take not even a quarter step backwards. He's a guy, even when he fights, always looks to go forward and pressure you the entire time.
Well, Frank, here's the one thing I reported in September when they made the switch that Nick Diaz took a huge financial hit. Couldn't confirm the amount that it was, but it was very, 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 very substantial. Do you think
that was 6 varies?
I'm not saying there's any zeros involved in that. So
allegedly,
do you think that that penalty that Dana White did went toward anything of controlling him and making him see that, hey, you know what, if I'm doing this kind of behavior, that I'm going to cost myself significant amount of money, and that's, after all, why we're doing this?
For 6 years, Nick Diaz has not been in the UFC. And for 4.5 of it, he's been complaining about how everybody else is making more money than him when he fights. The promoters make more money. He's giving a great show. He deserves to get more pieces. He deserves to get more push. Then he has the chance of a lifetime. And the rumors are, the rumors always abound. No one knows what the hell goes on behind the scenes. But the rumors were he's making millions of dollars. Yeah, on the books it was one thing, but then there's locker room bonuses and sponsorships and all this other stuff. He's made millions of dollars in this one fight. And if he won it, it was going to be astronomical because he was going to have the title from right now, pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the world, and going and take it away from him. So it was like, it became a big deal. The easiest way to hit a Diaz brother is to take away the road bike, take away their ocean or swimming pool, take away their running shoes, or take away their money. And when you took whatever, I don't care if the money was $50,000 or $50,000 or $500,000 or $5 million. I don't care what that number was. You take any amount of money away from the Diaz brothers, they're going to kind of pay attention to you. And that's kind of one of the things that he did. And you kind of saw it, that once he was kind of pulled off the main event and it kind of leaked out a little bit, there was some money that was involved with him losing that piece. All of a sudden, you saw a whole different kind of Nick when it came to media. All of a sudden, yeah, he was 45 minutes late for one of them, but you probably have a better insight to what happened. The story was that he was out riding, didn't have his phone on him. When he got home, his phone was dead. He was charging. His brother came over and got him. He got on the conference call, but he was 45 minutes late. He didn't know about it, but he still showed up. The Diaz 2 or 3 weeks before that would have been like, whatever, I'm not going, I don't need to. But
see, I would have expected the exact opposite, though. The fact that, he loses this substantial amount of money and say, the heck with you guys. You know what? I was supposed to get X, now I'm getting Y. It's a lot less, so I'm not going to put as much effort forth. But you know what? He's done it. He was a half hour early to the workout the other day. He did miss his flight on Monday. He was flying from San Francisco to Vegas, and they had him on an afternoon flight. And of course, he got there too late, so he missed the flight. They booked him on the second flight. Almost gave Dana White a heart attack, but he managed to get to Vegas in time. And since he's been here, he's been great up until the weigh-in when he almost created chaos. And if the main event of this card would have been scrapped, oh my God. It would have been second only, I think, to if Cain Velasquez or Junior Dos Santos gets hurt before that Fox show. That would have been otherwise it would have been the worst thing that could have happened.
Kevin, you got to know better than I do. I mean, Steve, you have some insight on this. I don't know, but what happens if one of the fighters swings at another fighter and cuts him open or injures him so he can't compete at the weigh-ins? Like, screw the commission stuff. What happens to that? I mean, well, no. What's the commission going to do first? Like, what's the first thing that happens from the commission?
Well, the commission has routinely fined the guys and put them on suspension. So, you'd be looking at, depending on how bad the situation was, anywhere from a 3 to 6 month suspension. So, it may not matter if it's a 3-month suspension. You're going to have the guys cut, heal, and then come back. Yeah. So, a 3-month suspension wouldn't matter. But if you put them on a 6-month suspension, now all of a sudden you're pushing back a fight and you're losing, you're going to make them lose some money, and they will end up finding him. Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales had gotten in every single press conference, and I don't remember the amount. I want to say it was $150,000 that Barrera was fined for throwing a punch at Morales.
So it was like 1% of his purse. Like, who cares? He made like $3 million on that fight. Like, what's $150,000?
Well, $150,000 is a lot of money.
Kevin Iole from Yahoo is here with us. I'm Steve Cofield, Frank Trigg as well. Last thing on the Penn and Diaz fight. So we talked a long time there about Diaz being a villain. There was a point, and it's not that long ago, that BJ Penn was the villain, that he was the anti-establishment guy. Is he just being overshadowed now? Has he calmed down over the years, Kevin?
I don't think so. I think BJ is a very smart guy. I think he's a very manipulative guy. He understands how the system works. And BJ is going to say what he wants to say. If BJ wants to tweak Dana, think about it. There's very few fighters in the UFC who are willing to stand up to Dana and go toe-to-toe with him and comment and wisecrack him and talk back and not play the game that Dana wants you to play. BJ Penn is one of those. But I think his decision to do what he's done this week is a calculated decision designed to put the pressure on Nick Diaz. He knows Nick Diaz does not like to have crowds around him and people talking to him and all this. And I think BJ made a strategic move. Whether it pays off or not, who knows? But I really believe that, Frank.
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty smart. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's put him in an uncomfortable position. I'm not going to say a whole lot this week, so everyone has to get something from Nick.
When I fought an icon, you guys probably don't remember, but I fought Jason Miller. I retired for 8 months, blew up to 230. Fought Jason Miller, 185 pounds.
You won the title, right?
Yeah, I won the title from Jason.
So I remember.
And BJ was around us the whole time. He was he does a lot of Hawaiian music stuff, and he was on the islands because he lives on a different island than Honolulu. And we were out there for the press, and he came to me after, like, the fight was Saturday night. It was probably Thursday, but I'd been there since Monday, so I'd done press Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and he'd been with us, like, either right before us or right after us the entire time. And in Hawaii, all the stations, like everywhere else in the world, all the stations are kind of in the same building, so you just bounce down the hallway even though you're on different stations. And at the end of it, BJ was like, "What are you doing?" I go, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" He goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "Nothing. I'm here promoting this fight. I got this fight with Jason Miller." He goes, "You're not saying anything." I go, "Yeah, I don't need to." He goes, "What do you mean?" Jason Miller's nuts. He's crazy. Like, what do I got to do? I just have to look at him. He starts getting off. He gets off kilter. You see him on a tough show. You just look at him a little bit weird. He goes off kilter. So I didn't say anything. I played the nice guy the whole time, knowing full well it was going to drive him crazy. BJ's doing the exact same thing. Everyone's expecting BJ to be a great talker, have these one-liners. You saw all the videos of him and his training, whatever, and he's not doing anything because he doesn't have to. Diaz, for all intentional purposes of this argument, is nuts.
Right.
And so as a result, all you have to do is not say anything and not be what he's expecting.
Right.
And it throws him off. You give him off center. You get him off balance. I think, to be honest with you, I think the way that BJ, and the only way, and I love BJ to death, I love Nick to death. I love both these guys as personalities, as persons, and as fighters. But the only way BJ can win is by offsetting Nick. It's the only way he has the ability to beat Nick in this fight. To offset him has to start a month in advance. You've got to start the mental game long before you even get in there and just offset the whole thing.
All right, we're going to look at the odds in about 25 minutes. We'll go through most of the major fights on this card. A couple other points to cover from the card. We're going to talk to Dan Hardy more about Roy Nelson, but what are your thoughts on Roy's relationship? You know, Roy also comes into this, not in a must-win situation, but he's going to fight Crow Cop. He needs a win. I don't know that he'd be fired, but there's also this weird dynamic at times. Is it just the sarcasm that Dana White can't stand about Roy, or is Dana playing around a little bit where he's almost playing this adversarial thing with Roy?
No, I don't think Dana's playing around. I think what it is Dana doesn't mind Roy's personality. Dana minds Roy's belly.
Right.
And he looks at that belly and he says, you know what, I see a guy that's got quickness, he's got flexibility, he's a hard puncher, he's a terrific wrestler, he's got good jiu-jitsu. And who's his biggest win over? Brendan Schaub. Right, he hasn't had that, big win over a good guy, and he's good enough to have beaten some of these guys. I thought he personally should have beaten Arlovsky in that fight. The decision went the other way, but still, on his record, his biggest win was over a guy making his UFC debut, and I think that's what Dana's upset about when he looks at Roy. I fall sort of in the middle. Part of it is, and I guess as a fat guy myself, I can speak for for guys with big bellies, is that I think, Roy that's his natural build, and he's been a great athlete all his life. He can dunk a basketball and all this. It's hard to believe, but so I think part of it is, you're just that way. You get by on your great natural ability, but also part of it, I think, and this is the part I agree with Dan, if he would push and if he would get out there, how much better could he be? And the world loves great heavyweights, and if you have another good heavyweight in there, I think that would make him a lot more money, would make the UFC more money, it would just help the whole business. And so
Dana's frustrated.
I think
more
Dana's
than anything.
frustrated that he sees this potentially great piece going to waste.